It's 11 p.m. You said you'd watch one episode. You've watched 4. Your eyes burn. Your back aches from the position you've been in for 3 hours. You know, with complete clarity, that you should sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a disaster. You know this. And yet your thumb is already moving toward the remote. One more, just one more, and then you'll sleep. You will not sleep. You will watch 3 more. You will go to bed at 2:30, or 3, or 4, and in the morning when the alarm goes off, the version of you that has to wake up will hate the version of you that stayed up. They are the same person. They cannot agree on anything. This is the strangest thing humans do. We willingly destroy our next day to feel a little less of our current night. We call it relaxation. It is not relaxation. It is anesthesia. And Freud diagnosed exactly what was happening, exactly what it cost, exactly what we were trying to escape in 1920, 106 years ago. Before television, before streaming, before the algorithm, he saw it in his patients first, then in himself. By the end of this session, you'll know exactly why one episode becomes 4. Not the dopamine answer, not the lazy answer, the deeper one. The one that explains why even shows you don't really enjoy can keep you awake until dawn, why you keep watching things you've already seen, why the relief never quite arrives, even though you keep reaching for it. Stay with me. There's a patient I want to tell you about. He came back from the First World War with a symptom so strange it forced Freud to abandon everything he thought he understood about pleasure. I'll come back to him. He explains everything you do after 11 p.m. Lie down. Close your eyes. This is your session. Let me describe your last Tuesday night. You finished work at 7. You ate dinner standing up, scrolling. By 8, you were on the couch. You opened a streaming app. You scrolled through it for 20 minutes. You didn't really want to watch anything. You wanted something to want to watch. There's a difference. You wanted the algorithm to choose for you. You wanted to be removed from the position of having to decide anything else today. You picked a show, maybe one you'd already seen. There's a reason for that, and we'll get to it. You started watching. The first episode was fine. Not great. Fine. You were aware during it that you weren't really paying attention. Your mind was somewhere else. The show was just preventing your mind from being where it actually wanted to go. You looked at your phone twice during it. You didn't really laugh at the parts that were supposed to be funny, but you watched. The first episode ended. The next one started automatically. You did nothing to stop it. You just sat there as the next one began. By the time you were aware that you had not made a decision to watch another episode, you were already 11 minutes into it. You thought briefly about going to bed. You did not. You kept watching. The third one started, then the fourth. Somewhere around midnight, you stopped enjoying the show entirely. You weren't even watching it. You were just sitting in its glow. The screen was something to be in front of. You had become a person who could not initiate the next thing. You needed momentum to carry you. The show was momentum. Sleep was a decision. Decisions had become impossible. At 1 a.m. you remembered that there was something you'd been meaning to do that mattered to you. A call to a friend. A piece of writing. A walk. Something that wasn't this. You felt it briefly. It hurt. You watched another episode to make it stop hurting. The episode worked. The feeling went away. You felt nothing for the next 45 minutes, which was preferable to feeling that. At 2 a.m., you noticed your body was angry with you. Your back, your eyes, your jaw, you ignored it. The body's complaints were less loud than what waited for you in the silence of your own bedroom, so you stayed in front of the screen. You finally went to bed at 3. You did not sleep immediately. You scrolled on your phone for another 20 minutes. Then you put the phone down and lay in the dark. And the thing you had spent 6 hours not feeling rose up immediately. You felt it for 2 minutes. It was unbearable. Then exhaustion took you, and you fell asleep, and tomorrow when the alarm goes off, you'll have no idea why you're so tired. You'll blame the bad mattress, the stress, the age. You'll blame everything except the actual mechanism, because the actual mechanism is too inconvenient to name. If any of this sounds familiar, listen carefully. You are not watching too much TV. You are anesthetizing yourself against a life you haven't decided whether to live. And Freud saw it coming. In 1920, Freud was 64 years old. He had been treating patients for over 30 years. He had developed a theory of human behavior so successful that it had taken over Western psychology. The theory was simple. He had called it the pleasure principle. Humans, Freud said, are motivated by one thing: We seek pleasure, we avoid pain. Every choice we make, every relationship we form, every job we take can be traced back to this simple drive: pleasure forward, pain back. This was Freud's foundation. He had built his entire career on it. And then in 1920, he wrote a book that destroyed his own foundation. The book was called Beyond the Pleasure Principle. In it, Freud admitted something he had been resisting for years. He had been seeing patients whose behavior could not be explained by the pleasure principle. Soldiers returning from the First World War who relived their worst moments every night in dreams. Children who, after their mother left the room, played the same painful separation game over and over. Patients in therapy who repeated, with new partners and new jobs, the exact disasters that had ruined their previous lives. These people were not seeking pleasure. They were not even seeking the relief of avoiding pain. They were doing something darker. They were compelled, against their will, to repeat the experience that had injured them. Freud called it the repetition compulsion. And when he asked himself what kind of drive could possibly produce this behavior, he came to a conclusion so dark he hesitated for a year before publishing it. There is a drive inside us, Freud said, that is the opposite of life. He called it thanatos, the death drive. It is not a desire to die. It is something stranger. It is a pull, deep and ancient, toward states of stillness, oblivion, non-existence. The pleasure principle wants us to feel good. The death drive wants us to feel nothing. And both of them, Freud said, are operating in every human being, every moment of every day. Now think about your Tuesday night. You did not turn on the television to feel pleasure. By midnight, by 1 a.m., you were not enjoying anything. The show was not bringing you joy. It was bringing you something else. It was bringing you the absence of feeling, the blank, glazed, mildly numbed state that exists between fully alive and fully asleep. That state, Freud would say, is exactly what thanatos seeks, not death. Death is too dramatic, just the slow, comfortable approximation of it. The screen is perfect for this. It demands nothing. It offers nothing. It just continues. And while it continues, you don't have to. You are not addicted to streaming. You are using streaming to perform a slow, hourly negotiation with the death drive. Every episode is a small surrender. Not enough to kill you. Just enough to make the feeling of being alive temporarily go away. Let me tell you about Mark. Mark is a composite. He doesn't exist as one person, but every detail comes from real cases I've researched. He is 34. He lives in London. He works as a software engineer at a major tech company. He makes very good money. His life on paper is fine. For the past 3 years, Mark has had a routine. He gets home at 7:30. He eats. By 10 p.m. he is on the couch. He opens his streaming service. He watches television until somewhere between 3 and 4 a.m. He sleeps 4 hours. He goes to work. He functions. He repeats this 5 nights a week. On weekends he watches more, not less. 6 months ago his wife left him. She told him in their last conversation that she had felt invisible for 2 years, that he had been in the same room as her but never actually with her, that the television had been a third person in their marriage, one she could not compete with. Mark did not understand. He had been right there every night. He had been present. He had not been present. He had been anesthetized, and in the 6 months since she left, he has watched more television than ever. The empty apartment is louder than the marriage was. So the screen runs constantly now. Mark recently told a friend that he doesn't even know what he watches anymore. The episodes blur. Sometimes he realizes he has watched the same season twice in a month and does not remember it. He is consuming content the way an alcoholic in late-stage addiction consumes alcohol. Not for the effect, just to maintain the absence of sobriety. Mark went to a therapist 3 weeks ago. He told her he thought he was depressed. She asked him a question. The question was, what would happen if, tonight, you turned off the television at 10 p.m., and just sat in your living room doing nothing for 2 hours? He couldn't answer, not because he didn't understand, because the question terrified him in a specific way that depression alone cannot explain. Sitting in his living room for 2 hours without the screen would mean being alone with himself. And Mark realized in that moment that he had not been alone with himself, actually alone, since approximately the time his wife stopped being able to reach him. He had been hiding inside the screen. And the screen had been so good at hiding him that he had begun to disappear even from his own awareness. Freud would have recognized Mark instantly. He had a phrase for what was happening. He called it the lullaby of the death drive. The soft, repetitive, endless quality of a life arranged to never quite feel anything. Mark was not depressed, or rather depression was a small part of it. The larger condition was that Mark was performing his own slow vanishing, 10 hours a week minimum, in front of a screen designed to make the vanishing feel like leisure. I want you to do something right now. Before I continue, place one hand on your chest, over your heart. Just rest it there. Notice if your heart rate is faster than you'd expect for someone who's been sitting still listening to a video. For most people it is. There is a low-grade vigilance in your body that you've stopped noticing because it never goes away. That vigilance is the part of you that has been waiting to be acknowledged. It speaks loudest in silence, which is why you fill the silence with screens. Because if you didn't, that vigilance would tell you something you don't yet have a way to hear. Keep that hand there for the rest of this session. It's a small reminder that you are still inside this body, and this body has been trying to get your attention. If you've made it this far, the next part is the part most people refuse. I'll say it once. The reason you binge watch isn't that you love television. It's that you have arranged your life in such a way that turning the screen off would force you to face a question you don't yet have the courage to face. The question is not what would I do if I had more time. The question is who would I be if I had to actually experience my own life right now. The screen exists to prevent you from finding out. And the streaming companies know this. Not consciously, but their algorithms have figured it out. The autoplay countdown is not a convenience. It is a structural intervention designed to keep you in the lullaby zone, never quite returning to consciousness, until exhaustion takes you to a sleep that does not restore you, because sleep cannot restore what was never being lived in the first place. Now let me tell you about the patient I promised I would come back to. In 1919, Freud began seeing soldiers who had returned from the First World War. They had a symptom that confused every doctor who treated them. Every night, in their dreams, they relived the worst moments of the war. The moment a friend died next to them. The moment a shell exploded. The moment they realized they were going to die and then somehow didn't. The dreams were not random. They were precise reconstructions of trauma, and the soldiers were not getting better. With each repetition, the dream came back the next night, and the next. For years, Freud was confused. The pleasure principle said that dreams should be wish fulfillment. The mind should want to escape pain, not seek it. Why were these men compelled, night after night, to return to the worst moment of their lives? He worked with them, he listened, and slowly he understood. The mind, when overwhelmed by something it cannot process, does not move away from the trauma. It moves toward it, over and over, trying, each time, to master what it failed to master the first time, to finally feel what it could not feel in the moment. To finally make sense of what destroyed sense. The compulsion to repeat, Freud said, is older than the pleasure principle. It is more primitive. It is rooted in the same drive that wants to return all life to the stillness it came from, to return the broken person to the state before they were broken, which is not life. It is the absence of life. Your binge watching is the modern version of this. You are returning every night to the same low-grade trance you were in the night before. The compulsion is not about the show. The show is interchangeable. The compulsion is about returning to that particular flavor of nothingness. The flavor your nervous system has learned is the closest thing to safety it can reliably produce. This connects to everything we've discussed in this series. The exhaustion in episode 15 was the energy spent maintaining this anesthesia. The phone in episode 16 was the daytime version of this same screen. The job in episode 17 was what made the anesthesia necessary. They are all the same wound, expressed in different rooms of your life. So what do? The answer is not to delete the streaming services. You can. It might help for a week, but the screen will return in another form because the wound that needs the screen is still there. What worked for Freud's soldiers, and what works for you, is the slow, deliberate act of meeting what the screen is helping you avoid. Not for hours, not as a project, just for 10 minutes a night. Before you open the app, sit in your living room. No phone, no screen, no book, just you in the room. 10 minutes. And let whatever rises rise. It will be uncomfortable. The first night will feel impossible. The third night will feel less impossible. By the second week, something will begin to shift. The screen will start to feel less essential. Not because you've defeated it, because you've started to remember that you exist outside of it. The lullaby Freud described is not destroyed by force. It is destroyed by 10 minutes of conscious presence, repeated until the nervous system relearns that being awake is survivable. You don't need to watch less television. You need to start watching your own life again, 10 minutes at a time. The rest will follow. Tonight, before you reach for the remote, ask yourself one question. Not what would I be doing instead? That question is too big. The smaller, harder question, what am I trying not to feel right now? The answer comes quickly if you let it. Whatever it is, that's what's actually keeping you up until 4 a.m. The show is just the costume the avoidance is wearing. In our next session, we'll talk about the place all this avoidance points to. The thing your nervous system has been trying so hard not to let you experience. We'll talk about why you're afraid of being happy and why, again, Freud predicted exactly the trap you're caught in. This has been your session on Sigmund Freud Explains You. If you want to understand what your mind is hiding from you, subscribe. New sessions every day.